Decoding Beauty, the strategies behind building a successful beauty business with Sinovuyo Mondliwa. To ask Sinovuyo to join me on stage, we can play a song. I don't know why my DJ is so shy today. Excited to be having this conversation with Sinovuyo. They've asked me to swap because they can't see me. Can you see me now? Oh, it was a request from this side. Okay, we're here. I can see everyone. Really excited to be having a conversation with Sinovuyo, one of my favorite people. I speak to my head of content a lot, and I was saying, Sinovuyo is like a younger sister to me. Literally, even when I hear anything, and someone's like, I said, yeah, but every single time I hear anything about Sinovuyo, I get into that older sister mode. Really excited to be having this conversation with you.
You're so beautiful today.
Thank you.
I'm nervous, guys, but I'll get into it.
We've had several conversations in the past, and I'm going to inform you that I did pull some questions from your post because Sinovuyo has a cult following. Sinovuyo posts that we should be buying at Pick n Pay a pyjama, and the pajamas run out at Pick n Pay. So her audience is really, really amazing. I think you have done exceptionally well in presenting yourself in the most authentic way that I think you can, even to the detriment of some people possibly not liking what you might be experiencing or sharing. You have always had the courage to just show up as yourself. One of the things that drew me to you in contextualizing the Working Smart and Living Well conversation was how you spoke to me about your working seasons and how you are intentionally creating downtime and intentionally creating time to actually work. So I want to go way back to our conversation in 2020 and just ask you, what season are you in right now?
I am in a season of resting, traveling. I liked what the previous guest said, getting intimate with the people around me because I've neglected them so much in the last 3 years. Getting to know my sisters again. We're going to the Daisies. I've never been to a festival like that, but I'm pushing myself. So experiences and rest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you find the courage, Sino, to say, I am not going to work 12 months every year because it is just not how I live my best life, and not be constantly worrying about how you're going to survive and living in survival mode?
I think everything I do stems from honesty. I think you have to have a very strong underlying principle or ethic. I'm not saying it has to be positive, but I hope it's positive. So I am big on honesty. So I think how I process my thoughts, I'm very honest. So I know that when I even said to one of the ladies now, I hope in today's conversation, I'm anointed as in what I need to say comes out. Because you find that sometimes the work that you do, you could do the same project in January and do it in September, and you'll deliver it differently because of what's coming through all around, from all around. And I feel like as I'm progressing, I'm going back to who I've always been, because obviously in your 20s, you're discovering. So it's like I'm very in tune and very honest about my emotions, my feelings. Even when I'm overthinking, I'm okay with it, as long as I'm just always honest. So I honestly decide, okay, I'm in this season, I'm feeling so smart, so let me come up with some ideas. When the serum idea came, it was like in the middle of a normal day, and then I was like, okay, now I'm gonna work hard. Then I gave it like the strongest 4 months in the past 5 years, and then after that, we launched the products, and then I rested for a long time. I remember in December, there's a time where I was just in bed for like 4 days straight. So I think honesty, just being honest with yourself, that's where the courage comes from.
And I think someone might be wondering why I'm asking these questions in a conversation about decoding beauty. But I think when you work in an environment where you are intimately communicating with an audience around a part of their life that is so intimate to themselves, there has to be a level of empathy around understanding what the truth to their reality is in order to solve some of the problems that they're having. And I know you speak highly about the book that speaks about marketing empathy. And I think it's not only the book, but it is the way that you create and the space that you create from. I want you to share a little bit about how empathy interfaces with the products that you create and how you create.
So the empathy stance is not something I've had from the beginning, and people who've always followed me will know. So in the beginning, I wasn't so empathetic with myself as well. So when I cut my hair, my sister-in-law had cut her hair. So I got the courage to cut my hair then, and it was a bit in fashion, but I didn't like how I looked. So I wore a hat for the first 3 weeks after I cut my hair until I got used to it. Then I realized, no, man, how I felt 3 weeks later wasn't how I felt before. So that process was me just getting accustomed to the look. Not that it looked ugly, I just don't know it. And then as I went with my hair care, I realized, no, man, the reason I couldn't take care of it is because I didn't know. Now I'm just teaching myself. So after 6 months, I was like, oh, now it's like almost easy. But if you never do the 6 months of getting to know it, so you cannot give yourself empathy or any other person empathy. And I remember when I started sharing on YouTube and Instagram, I was immature in empathy because I would project in the same way I spoke to myself. I'd be like there's times I would look in the mirror, I'm like, you, I'll say be whatever. But I would it happens. But you work through those emotions. So because Instagram and YouTube is so raw, you don't get time. I didn't at the time think, okay, how do I want to present myself? Do I want to be this way and this way? So the last 8 years has really taught me that you can learn over time. So empathy is something I've learned. So in 2020, I registered for a course, a marketing management course. And then there's a textbook called Marketing with Strategic Empathy. So the strategic part blew my mind, guys. So it's things as simple as like body language, even on camera. I remember you sent me something that you wanted me to enter, and I had to do a video. And they tell you where to sit. Your body language is important, how your body language impacts who's seeing the video or whoever's watching. So little things like that. So I understood that Black women have a very special and different relationship with their hair. You cannot, if I'm a person who has natural hair and loves their natural hair, I cannot speak about weaves because the perception of how I speak about weaves is different. So it's not that I can't have an opinion, but I need to be empathetic in how I express that opinion. So you'll see that my Instagram and YouTube journey really changed from an immature young lady growing up, but also growing up around the discussion about Black women's relationship with their natural hair or hair as a whole. So, so when you lead from a place of strategic empathy, everything works out for you. There's nothing that I've ever approached with that approach that didn't work out.
Yeah.
It also ties very closely to Marianne Williamson, leading from a place of love. So love and empathy, it intertwines.
Yeah.
So if I respect Nomdeni and I see her with empathy and I love her, whatever I say or do with her will never not work out in a good way.
I think that's so powerful as we speak about, again, the idea of beauty and how when you do go into the beauty business, you are solving for a very intimate problem. People are very sensitive about where they find themselves at different times in their path, particularly with hair. And I always say to you, I'm definitely one of those people who cannot even imagine taking care of natural hair. I always say I'm just too busy, and every time we engage, Sino always enlightens me around, maybe I need to think about this way or think about that way. But it is essentially that level of empathy that allows her to engage with me, understanding where I am, and trying to understand also where I want to go. You know, maybe I don't want natural hair. Maybe I'm happy with where I am. And what are the solutions to loving my hair at any point where I have that relationship. What I then did, Sinovuyo, is because I didn't want to take over the conversation, I really wanted your people to be part of the conversation. We did pull some questions that they asked you in that last post that you did, letting everyone know that you'd be here. And Zuzi_MA said, I'd love for you to speak more on women empowerment in the business sector. And I would love to also hear your take on life and business integration, because we all know how important it is to rest whilst running a business as well.
I found it so cute that I had an office at home, so I could pack orders at any time. But quickly, that got very intertwined and crossing over into my personal life. There's times where I'd pack orders at 11. I was studying, but then I'd go in between studying and packing orders. Then I realized that that's very unhealthy. So I literally, this time last year, my lease was actually up for renewal. I got an office. So at the office, it's work. At home, there's no work. I remember how intense I was in that moment. I was like, no printers at home. I don't want to see Love Kings at home. I don't want posters. I don't want pictures. I don't want nothing. I got rid of anything that said Love. I was here with Love Kings, with Love Kings. But that separation has made me think so much better in the office. The thinking is so streamlined. At home, when I host, I'm not telling people about Love Kings. Oh, here's the doc, come see. Now I'm like talking about whatever else. And I feel like that is a system. It's underrated, but separating your work physically from your home. Like when therapists say leave work at work, guys, they're not joking. My relationship has gotten so much better. I remember in a therapy session, the therapist said, on date night, you can't speak about Love Kings. On holiday, you can't speak about Love Kings. Even if the bottles are delayed at a harbor in Durban, we're not solving it on date night. Leave it alone. So I've really separated. But I do think the time when it was really intertwined, I don't hate it. It was necessary because I was upskilling. I was learning. I was trying to understand. And it gets easier. This year has been the easiest since things became amazing. So it gets easier over time. Separating home and work or business makes it easier as well. So you have to have a distinct separation, but also have empathy for yourself, learning over time.
I love that because the mic belongs to you. One of the things I said at the beginning of our day today was one of the core reasons I'm so passionate about my work is I did have these 2 seasons where I kind of leaned into either working smart or living well, and I recognized what I lost in both the seasons. And now I better understand how to create a rhythm for myself where I have harmony between the 2 areas of my life which I think are so critical. And I think what's so beautiful about you is this is no longer an idea. You have systems and structures in place that allow you to find that harmony and move between those 2 spaces. I have Balisa Makuru who said, can you speak about your beginning stages? Because I think we underestimate the amount of knowledge you need to take on entrepreneurship. How did you navigate using all the information provided to you without feeling overwhelmed about where to start? There were really some amazing questions there. They really helped me because, yeah, I sit here the whole day.
I love the questions. I even thought with some, wow, I've never even thought about that. Like, I'd have to think about how I would answer it. I like that one. Okay, so the harmony and systems. So I think sometimes we think that we're going to wake up and know how to do something. Guys, kunzima. Like, so for me, when in high school, all my teachers were like, you've got so much potential, but you're not tapping into it. And there's a nice saying there's so many Albert Einsteins, ekasi. It's just that they don't have the opportunities to ever find out if they are Albert Einsteins. So I feel like I was always just so smart, but I never had the right window for that smartness to be highlighted. So I think, I'm gonna quote you, picking up the breadcrumbs along the way, the woman aspect, the hair aspect, because I had 5 sisters and we grew up like fixing our hair and making ourselves beautiful through our hair. And the timing, I was 28 and lockdown isolation did so much for me. I think those things put together unlocked so much. And then after unlocking that, there's like an explosion of everything, and then now you have to create systems to narrow it. Not narrow it, but like it's like that's the explosion, and then these 4 fingers are the systems that are going to channel all of that. So it was a beautiful process. Didn't feel beautiful when I was experiencing it, but my very, very, very smart and brilliant partner said, "You're going to need systems because you're all over the place." And then I did a course with Mackenzie. And I thought the course would make us do formulas and everything. And literally the course would be like getting 7 hours of sleep is very important. But this is why it's important. And this is how you use being well rested as a tool in your business. And then they'd be like, oh, it was mind-blowing. I was also like, oh, all the time. And then the one that blew my mind was problem solving. Like, you wake up, you think, I'm smart enough to solve this problem. No, there are systems to help you. It's a scientific method. It's existed before you existed. Businesses have been formed from these systems. Plug in. So I have so many systems I've used. Just from that McKinsey course, I cannot say how many I've used. And then from the marketing course as well. Pricing. I priced out of thinking I'm smart. Let me tell you, the initial year of sales, I was badly priced. I realized when I registered for VAT that, oh my goodness, now I have to pay the VAT out of my cash flow. I didn't even know what cash flow was at the time. Out of my cash flow because I underpriced before. Do I put the VAT so that people can see it? Do I put it in? But there's a process for that. So you can start on Google, you can say Google Scholar, and you can find how have other businesses navigated this. You can consult professionals. My lawyer really helped me with processes with trademarking, design protection, accountants. They also really help. So I respect paying professionals to help because I cannot be a professional in everything. And then my partner is very good. He was like, okay, in a year's time, let's see if this is not a fluke or not. Okay, oh, you've lasted a year. Okay, but the sales were high, but let's see how they plateau because 3-year sales are more important than lockdown sales. So yes, the sales did go down. And then I consulted Justice. He worked at JP Morgan, growing small businesses. And he said, your products are too high quality. People will come back after a long time. How's your repeat customer percentage? Then I went on my Shopify. I didn't even have my stats. I wasn't paying for stats. Then he's like, start paying for stats. They're there for a reason. So then I paid for stats and it would tell me what my return customer is. Then they say there's no business without a return customer. And then I was like, oh, so I need a product that customers can come back for monthly or every 2 months. But I was like, I'm not going to do it now because I don't know what it is right now. And then I remember, I woke up one day and I was like, oh, I use serums on my face. Why can't I use serums on my scalp? Because those penetrate better than oil. So I was like, okay, I'm actually going to do a serum for scalp. Then I was like, that's going to be my product, a Kalisitili. So I was like, that's my repeat customer product. And it's transformed everything. So I mean, getting past year 1, getting to year 2, getting to year 5, which is for me soon, depends on those little consulting professionals, creating systems, understanding cash flow. So it's slow, painful, but it gets there.
Yeah.
It gets there.
One of the things I really enjoy about speaking to you, and I tell you this all the time, is that you are very practical in expressing what the entrepreneurial journey is. Every time I engage with you in conversation, it is never for inspiration for me. This one is not inspiration, guys. This one is just about facts. I'm going to share a story, and I'm trying to think about where it's coming from in me. Because sometimes you do something emotional, and then you do something because you're educating. But I think this lands on the education part. We did a post for this particular event, and we said, if you have a sampling strategy as an entrepreneur, please put your products in our goodie bag. Do you hear me? If you have a sampling strategy, I don't want your goodie bags to give to the people at the event because we want to give people goodie bags. If your business has a sampling strategy, go ahead. We have an opportunity for you to put stuff in the goodie bag. We had an email where a lady said, you are charging 1,750. How are you taking advantage of founders? Why are you not buying the products? Right? And put up a post of a highly influential influencer who said, events like this that take goodie bags from founders are taking advantage of founders. I'm going to repeat. If you have a sampling strategy, if you don't have one, we're not talking to you. The reason big businesses have sampling strategies is because they understand the importance of getting their products to people.
Yeah.
The reason small businesses do not have sampling strategies is because it's expensive. We understand that. But should you be looking for the opportunity, we can engage with you. Be careful of the advice you take on social media without further interrogation. Be careful of advice you take on social media without further interrogation. For instance, Sinovuyo would never be able to give me serums for 250 women. It's a very expensive exercise for her because she doesn't have them in a pouch somewhere. It's not part of her budget and she's not able to do that. The reason I have this conversation with Sinovuyo is because I see so many people taking 2-second insights on social media and making them a business strategy. A business strategy is an intentional process where you sit and better understand what you want to achieve and what are the best ways to achieve it. I wanted to land that to further contextualize where this conversation is going and why I will continue to have Sinovuyo speaking about processes, systems, and how she's figured out how to run her business. I'm going to go to the next question. Did any mentorship and support systems, this came from Tembeka Dube, did any mentorship and support systems play a role in your professional growth and success as an entrepreneur?
I've had formal and informal mentorship. I think both are important. Formal mentorship really speaks to what you said, systems, the technical facts. I remember complaining to my accountant about VAT and tax. And then he said to me, you don't get to complain. People that have employment 9 to 5 don't claim back for makeup,
styling,
clothes. You get to claim. You actually pay the least tax. And on top of that, VAT, you charge for VAT. So that's your cash flow management. You're not suffering. So that gave me so much perspective, and I've never felt bad about paying VAT and tax again. So I've got formal mentorship there. And then the informal mentorship, that feeds the soul. That is like, I remember when I was when I was testing my serum and products. So I gave it out to about 15 people, a lot of them being close family and friends. And I remember they were just too nice. Oh, it's amazing. Oh my gosh. I think I'm seeing my hair grow already. and it was all positive. And I was like, it can't be all positive because I'm not perfect. And my formulator is not perfect. And I remember I only got 2 harsh comments. And I received them with love because I knew those people wanted to help me. The one said, I remember I was initially going to use minoxidil, and minoxidil is prescribed by dermatologists, and it's been prescribed by dermatologists for a very long time. And then I remember the dermatologist that was talking to me about it on WhatsApp informally said she was taking, not offense, but I'm an influencer, and we know the perspective that some people have about influencers. It's like, lots of followers, you're trying to make money in however way possible. So now I'm gonna jump onto the minoxidil bandwagon. So I sat with that for a while. I had samples with minoxidil. I'd taken pictures of the minoxidil serum. Then I was like, no, I am not going to leech off a product, an ingredient that's been built by dermatologists. I'm going to find another ingredient that does something similar, and I'm not going to talk about hair loss because I cannot speak about something that dermatologists speak about. I'm going to say, I want to help you maintain your hairline when you've done braids, because I know people I'm not going to stop doing braids, people aren't going to stop doing braids, so how can I make it easy that your hairline can be repaired? I'm not going to talk about hair loss because I'm not educated about hair loss, and I don't want to overstep boundaries. So that's an informal mentorship system that took a year or 6 months to decide all those little things. I chucked my minoxidil samples, and I started with Capelia longa and bicouple. And I'm like, people don't know it. I'm going to talk about it because I'm good at breaking down ingredients. I'm going to talk about it. And then that was the first most impactful one. And that's going to impact me for the rest of my life. I'm going to pave my own path, and I'm not going to leech off what other people have created or built. The second one was getting advice and feedback for my samples from someone who wasn't scared to be real and honest and mean, you know? So I remember I had droppers for my serum and my oil, I remember I gave it to her. She had been using it for 3 weeks. She came back to me and said, the packaging is cheap. And I remember, not like with an attitude, but it's cheap, it's messy, it's not going to work. And I wasn't heartbroken, you know. I was like, finally, someone who's being honest. And I remember feeling like the serum, the fragrance was a bit strong for sinuses. And I said to my sister, you've got sinuses. How does it feel for the sinuses? She's like, no, it's fine, because at least it's far, it's on the head. I don't want it to be at least as far, it's on the head. Because when you're putting it on, it's going to touch your fingers. And I was like, no, my instinct to take down the fragrance intensity was right, but I needed someone to say, yes, it's too strong, or no, it's not too strong. So having people that are able to be mean or not so nice all the time in mentorship is so important. And I think that happens a lot in professional mentorship, but you can also find it in the cracks of informal mentorship. But I think both are very important.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. There is a question from Sonwabile Mjingwana, which says, hey, Sino, I would love to hear these specific aspects of your journey worded out. There's something about giving birth to a thing that changes your life. I look at the meticulous and uniquely designed Love King Stooks and bonnets, and I'm always in awe of how it took us by storm, and it did. Sometimes we look for the grand product, whereas sometimes the product the market needs is not anything new, but something better refined and way more useful. To carry that idea from inception, irrespective of all the negatives, and bring it to life so credulously is a journey we don't see. How did and how are you conquering fear irrespective of production backlogs, lack of funding, sustainability, etc.?
That's a loaded one. It's yummy though. I like those kind because it makes me like break it down for myself as well. So the only reason those dooks and bonnets could blow people's minds is because it came from the same people. So I had this grand thing, which was the pillowcases. I was like, oh, you just fall asleep. It works. Your skin is moisturized when you wake up, or the moisture is retained. Your hairs, that's going to be mind-blowing. And then people weren't mind-blown. And then I didn't understand. I actually wrote like a 10-page essay about this, what I'm going to say now, for the strategic empathy course. And I got an A. So it literally... So it goes by, starts by, Sino, we love the pillowcases. They're quite expensive, one. That's research. Not research, but it's feedback. That aids research. They're too expensive. I'm not going to say no if you can't afford them. You're not the target market. That's something I should be noting. Two, but it had to be said so many times. Two, black women grew up wearing dooks. Okay? So it's like, we want something we can sing a duk. They didn't say duk, but it was implied. But something easier. And I was like forcing the pillowcase thing, but it's not something that we're accustomed to. I remember even when I started using pillowcases, I'd change my cotton to the satin. Now the satin just sits there because I'm used to it. So I remember then I was like, also it's associated with Kleenex, like I don't like the vibe. I literally was like, I don't like that vibe, you know. And then the Americans, it's like ghetto, you know. And then I remember in the comments, I'd say that, I'd be like, no, I don't like the imagery around it. And then a very smart lady, Utembi, said, how's about then you take it as a challenge to change the narrative around black women, because they love dooks. They're not going to stop wearing dooks. Change the narrative. I remember it was the 3rd of May. It was the 4th of May, they lifted the very strict lockdown rules. The factories could start operating. I literally got up, I designed the dook, and I was like, it's going to be a bougie dook. But that's from being empathetic to people's input. And then I went to town, and I was like, we're going to do this. We created a pattern. And I was like, okay, it's going to match with the pajamas. It's going to match with the pillowcases. And then all of a sudden, I loved the imagery. So all these mind-blowing things come from being empathetic to people's input. So I think the greatest businesses come from being empathetic to people's needs and wants. And that tie to heritage and culture, I think, has been the biggest driver. And then the bonnets, there's a big pop culture movement in America, Cardi B, everyone wearing bonnets. And they
And
just
my
were...
son.
Oh, yes, boys too, boys and men too. So it's taking what's happening in pop culture and making it luxurious, but tying it back to the dook that creates those mind-blowing creations, but they don't come from me. I'm not that great. We are collectively that great, but we have to listen and be empathetic to those nuggets that people
Absolutely.
give you. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Nabila came back with a question. You're just answering people's questions on this session.
I
because
like it.
I've had an interview with Sinovuyo on the podcast. If you
And
wanna hear it.
a gender woman 2020.
And Agenda Woman 2020. Yes, that was our first conversation. So today, I did not want to repeat the questions that I've asked her before. I wanted to really open it up to the people that wanted to hear from her. And it was really great that you put up that post. So Nabila came back. I need to meet Sonwabile because Sonwabile's questions were awesome.
She's so smart.
She's very smart. So she says, how did you avoid boss girl culture if you did? There's an illusion that comes with entrepreneurship and hustle culture that is just hard work and no rest. I believe there's a beautiful blend between hard work and reward, rest and hobbies. You, for me, carry such light, beautiful, easygoing personality. And for me, you seem to have mastered the blend. Yes, you definitely have worked tirelessly for your brand and business. And honestly, it's super inspirational. When I first heard this part, I was like, someone was reading it for me, and I was like, how have you avoided boss girl culture? And my first question was, boss girl culture, what is that? But it was beautiful that she went on to kind of clarify that we do have a culture of hustle hard, wake up at 5, don't sleep,
Yes.
keep going until you die, and then you'll get the 10 million rands, and then you'll leave it in your bank account, and everyone knows how I feel about that. But I think it's a beautiful question, and I'm curious about your answer.
I'm not smart when I'm tired. I do not have great ideas when I'm tired. I am not a loving person when I'm tired. So I understand myself and I'm honest with myself. And I think I realize that if I rest well, like even traveling, you get so many nuggets and things that can help inform. So in those sprints, when I work hard, I'm using the last few weeks or days or months of rest and what I was taking in. When I'm resting, I'm not doing anything. I'm like passively working. It's research. I watch a lot. I haven't been watching TV now for a while, but I mean, when I'm watching a lot of YouTube, I'm inspired. When I'm talking to people more extroverted in the rest period, I'm taking in so many comments and so many things that I can then implement when I'm in my sprint period. But I think it goes back to that honesty and knowing that when I'm rested, cliches are very awesome. I love cliches because they're so true. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you're always working and you're always bossing up and you're always trying to chase, I've got months where my turnover targets are lower than other months. My December turnover targets are high because people are buying, November, December. But my January targets, I understand that people aren't buying as much, and then I match my rest with that period because I don't have to do as much. I know that payday weekend is when people buy a lot, so then I work harder. But I always tell Ulami, we work together, that our stock taking, we do it the quieter days. So it's hectic from the 15th to the 5th. So you get a quiet 10 days, and that's where you do. So everything in my life is built around cycles of when I'm rested, I think well. When I'm tired, I need to rest. I don't spend all the time. Some periods, I'll buy a designer bag. But some periods, no, I'm going to restock with all my money. And people ask me, oh my God, you were doing so well, but you haven't bought this. I sold my car last year for the launch. And I was like, it's fine. I was going to upgrade this car anyway, so it's okay. But it's not a broke moment. It's a visionary moment. So there's a time for everything.
Absolutely. You spoke a lot about feedback, right? And how you can it's almost like a data research process for you now. But I imagine at the beginning there was a time when the feedback, you were unable to receive it as data. And it almost maybe felt like a personal attack. What have you done to work through understanding when clients give you feedback, taking that and parking it because you better understand how it resolves some of your business challenges and separating that feedback from who Sinovuyo is?
You need context. So if I have so many ladies that I chat to in my DM, and you'll see that I get into the conversation. So if someone, like yesterday we had an example of what happened. So yesterday we were viewing a new office, and literally it was the first time our office was unmanned. It was literally 15 minutes, and someone came to collect an order. And the secretary calls, actually it was packed, but the secretary couldn't find it. And she calls me and she says, yo, she was upset. And usually I would have been like, I'm not 5 Sinos in, not usually, but like 3 years ago, I'm not 5 Sinos in one. It would have been an attack.
Yeah.
So I'm not 5 Sinos in one. I can't be everywhere all the time. I'm not going to be perfect. I wasn't defensive. Defense is, you must know if you're being defensive, you're wrong. So I was just like, okay, cool. I'm going to call her. So I called her. I'm like, I'm so sorry. It's my fault. That shouldn't have happened. I am bringing, not myself, but I'm going to make sure you get that today. And I will add more things. I'm going to add a spritz. I'm going to add hair ties. I am going to make sure that you feel better for that bad experience that I made you experience. So it goes back again, sorry to say this again, but to empathy. I needed to be empathetic that she was excited to go get her parcel. When she got there, she didn't get the service that she was expecting. I remember people also would complain, why aren't you there to give us the parcels? And initially, I was like, I'm not selling that I'll be giving you the parcel. But again, if you look at it empathetically, if someone is buying from an influencer, it's closer than buying from a celebrity. It's closer than buying from
a shop. Or
a shop or Zara, the owner of Zara. So I cannot always be defensive or always find an excuse why they're being ridiculous. I need to say, actually, if once in a while I'm handing over the parcel, that person will buy again. So it's feedback that you can actually use to grow your revenue. I'm not saying everything must be exploitative, but I'm just saying, if you look at it from love and empathy, guys, it's always going to be good. So I sent her the spritz. She called me. Oh my God, I'm so happy, Sino. And she was so happy. But had I been defensive, she would have hated me, never bought again, and told that story to every single person. Yeah, so also I'm in a place where I just love my life and I love myself and I trust myself. So I'm not as defensive. I'm not defensive, like at all. Even like it's so funny when someone's being defensive, I'll look at them and I'm like, you're being defensive. But they're like, I'm not being. I'm like, you're being defensive about being defensive now. Like I'm just But also business humbles you.
Yeah.
Like you get to a point where you realize that you're nothing. Your customer is the most important person, and you've been humbled to here.
Yeah.
So I'm here now.
Yeah.
I'm very humble. So it's very hard to be defensive when you understand that you are a blade of grass.
Yeah. When was the last time you felt like everything was going wrong in business?
Last year, when I didn't understand cash flow. Guys, I had no money, but so many people, I had so much revenue, but I had no money. And I didn't understand it. Something as simple as adding a product, but you're adding product from revenue from another product. But now you don't understand why you don't have money. So Justice did a spreadsheet for me, beautiful spreadsheet, I wish I could sell it, where he tells me at what point of revenue from a certain product, I can then take some money from that product and this product and this product and then put that money together and then create a new product. That's why the shampoo and the conditioner is not coming yet, because I'm building that cash flow. The spreadsheet is not saying it's time. Yeah, last 2 months ago, the spreadsheet said it was time to get upgraded packaging. So you guys are getting, all my customers are getting upgraded packaging because the spreadsheet said it was time. So last year, I applied for funding and they said, yes, everything was going well. I went to meetings. And then after everything, they said, unfortunately, you've got nothing to lose. And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, if you had 5 stores or 3 stores, we'd know that like you're a lower risk. If you had 10 employees instead of 3 or 2, we'd know that you've got something to lose. So we'll give you the money because you have to do all of that. But I was like, no, I'm an online store. It's clean, it's neat, low overheads, no. But it doesn't mean that by funders or investors or government, they see it the same way. So I was heartbroken by that. And I was like, you know what, it's fine. If I'm not in a position where I want to open stores at this time, then I need to find a different avenue. So that was the last time I felt like it wasn't going to work. And then my partner, very smart guy, he said, listen.
You've said it now with every question.
He says, you've stopped doing campaigns because you feel like you're fat, right? But I think you need to do a campaign every day because that's your funding. Guys, since then, I think that was last year, August. Now it's August. I've, in campaigns, done more than double of the funding that I was applying for. So there's
always ways to work around it.
And guess what? For the money that I get from campaigns, I don't have to pay it back. It doesn't have interest. So such a great strategy came from when I thought, I'm going to close this business because they're not going to give me funding because I'm not going to open shops right now. So I'm very happy to say I'm probably like a week from being self-funded, loan-free, not crying and needing funding. But you're going to keep seeing all the campaigns because I need the campaigns to fund the business.
I think there's something powerful there around how you felt about campaigns and that being the reason that because we spoke about this, the reason that you wanted to do less of them. And when there was intention around the why you were doing the campaigns, it felt like it was something that was going to resolve a bigger issue. I think a lot of women who are in corporate trying to find side hustles sometimes get very emotional about the side hustle itself and forget about the solution that the side hustle is going to solve for. I've done this myself a lot of times where I become my own block for receiving money because I'm thinking about the act of the receiving of the money and not entirely the solution that the money is going to bring either to a growing business or supplementing a salary that is not sustaining the family. So I'm grateful that you highlighted that because I think it's something that particularly a lot of people in corporates, there's so much money in the social media space. You don't have to be an influencer, but there is so much that you can do within the social media space. It could even be sharing information and your expertise in the profession that you're already in. One of the things that Sinovuyo already spoke about is how entrepreneurship requires expert skills.
Yeah.
I pay oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about how many people I pay, but I pay a lot of people to be able to run the business efficiently. Not only that, we're a corporation that relies heavily on funding from big brands where we have to be able to demonstrate impact and really make them understand why they need to continue working with us. So just an idea, something to mull over, something to think about. Think about the solution and not so much about what needs to happen in between. Things start and end. Once you have your funding, you might decide that, I'm done with campaigns now because I get tired of doing them. But sometimes we really need to dig deep when we have to find solutions, especially financial solutions. We have a creator economy panel that Luyanda will be hosting after this, which will speak to some of those things. Yes.
To add on to what you're saying, I used to find the cost of paying bookkeepers and accountants so dreadful. And then I remember the funders saying, we need your monthly management accounts and your annual financial statements in order to be able to give you the funding. It's not painful anymore paying them because there's a reason. When I was just doing it, I didn't understand what I do with the documents. It felt like a schlep. Yes, there's SARS, but I mean, even more reason. So it makes what you're paying feel less painful.
Yeah, it's the same with VET, and I want to highlight this with small businesses. When we started Agenda Woman, I registered the business VET initially. So I didn't wait to get to 1 million because I knew what my target was going to be and I knew who my partners were going to be. And I registered that on the basis of I know who I'm going to work with.
Yes.
Not thinking about where I wanted or what the rules were, because you only need to register VET once you've hit your R1 million. But I knew from the beginning that the people that we're going to work with are in the millions and billions. So we need to be ready to receive that money.
Yeah, so not running from what you have to do, embracing it and creating towards it. Yeah.
Quick question. Online and offline channels both play a crucial role in beauty product distribution. I think this is one I'm curious about as well. What are your thoughts on finding the right balance between e-commerce and brick-and-mortar retail presence for brands that are only existing online right now?
You absolutely have to be brick and mortar as well. My perspective on this has changed. I learned it through the marketing degree. So basically, online is new, 4IR, but most of my customers are first-time online buyers. And the reason they are is because they trust me. They follow me. They're like, if I'm paying online for Sino, it's not so bad. But they don't want to buy online. Maybe after they make that first purchase on the Love Kings website, they'll buy online again. But I remember my first online purchase wasn't also so long ago. I think it was 2019. So we're not in the culture of buying online. There's also that thing of touching and feeling. And if you walk in a mall and you're passing and seeing a product, after 10 times of seeing it, you're going to be like, I want it now. So you absolutely need to get into brick and mortar. I've spoken to Poetry, they've approached me. I've spoken to Arc Store. And at the current moment, my pricing model just doesn't allow. but it's because I'm funding myself. Everything is being produced by me. I'm not at optimum scale yet, but once I'm at the right scale and the cash flow process is much better, which usually starts getting good at around year 5. I know that I will start now distribution at whichever store at that time will be the best for me. So it's not that I'm not against it, I'm for it, but it's just not my time yet. And other people have different business models, they've got different reasons why they start in brick and mortar, but I don't think one is worse than the other. I think if we see in lots of big businesses, you need both. Yeah.
And that's why you're going to be part of AW Brand & Co.
Yes.
We are launching a brick-mortar model, which is going to allow female founders to be able to access the market, particularly in malls, but we'll talk a little bit about that later.
And it's also important to know that Black-owned businesses are very different from your big businesses. So you cannot charge them the same percentage. It has to be, so that's been one of my biggest struggles. I cannot be charged 50% if L'Oreal is being charged 50%. It has to be different because we've got different models. So have the conversation with me. Let me tell you why I can only afford 20% and not 50%. And don't say you're not ready. I'm very ready, but I am not designed around this model yet. Yeah.
I have to say, Sinovuyo has been extremely influential in us figuring out how our model is going to look for this particular shop, just better understanding the entrepreneur that we want to assist and give opportunity to. So, of course, we would also not be able to follow the big models, but we want to be able to test out because it speaks to really what it is that we're trying to solve for, which is female founders getting a bigger audience, a bigger market, and making money. So I'm going to turn this question around because this question was about building a loyal customer base and creating a connection with your customer beyond the product. I'm going to flip it because there is a point when you are growing a business where, in a way, maybe there's an expectation. I don't want to say this is the truth. There's an expectation that to build a successful business, you at some point would have to not be the face as the founder, because that limits the ability for the business to grow beyond your turner. How are you thinking through that transition, if it's going to happen in the future? And if you've seen parts of that transition, how has that looked and how has that impacted your sales?
So I've dealt with both extremes. So we had a case study around Richard Branson, and his products are all oriented around him and his lifestyle, and it works amazingly. But I met the founder of Superbulous, who later on sold to Take A Lot. Had a very interesting conversation with him. He's so amazing. No one wants your product. You actually have to convince people no one needs your product. You have to convince people that they want your product. How do you do that? You don't have packaging. I didn't have packaging at the time. You don't have packaging. So who's going to want something that's not in packaging? He's very funny. And then he also said, oh, you're the face? Because I'd show him my sales. And he'd be like, why does it spike here? And then it's quiet, then it spikes. I was like, oh, that's when I've posted. He says, I don't want to a business that only sells when you've posted. What happens if you die? So I was very overwhelmed at the time, but it took me 2 years to unpack that conversation. He said to me, if Clicks comes to you tomorrow, not that I'm able to get into Clicks now, but if Clicks comes to you tomorrow, are you going to say, please give me 2 months to get packaging, or are you going to give them the product? I was literally the next day after that call, and I started finding product packaging solutions. And then, so there is a system, a scientific method to your product existing around you and it working, like Richard Branson. He did the hot air balloon, flying around the world, all these things. It worked for that time, that place, for his customer. When I was speaking to, I think his name is Just something as well, Justice, I forgot his name. But he was like, he doesn't want to fund a business that is centered around sales being around you. So it depends. Everything is situational. So if you find a system that works and it works around you, then it works. But if you find a system that doesn't work around you, then it also works. So I've played around a bit with it. There's times where I'd hire models and they'd be the the faces of the dooks or the launches. And then when I did it, the sales were much higher. And I understand the period I'm in my business, it's growing revenue so that I can fund myself and get my full product offering. So if that's working, to have me as the face, to push revenue, for now, it works. At a time when I have to take myself away, let's say I'm growing to sell and my target is 450 million, I'll know when, at that time, then I don't have to be the face, because let's say, God willing, Mr. Price buys Love Kings, or Woolworths buys Love Kings. I won't need to be the face because they've got enough distribution, they've got economies of scale, they don't need to drive revenue through me. So I think it's situational. In entrepreneurship, you need to be able to be agile. You need to adapt easily, and you need to be very, forgot the word, but like you need to be, every single day is a new day. So yes, today I could be the face, tomorrow I could not be. You have to apply yourself every single day. Yeah. So for now, I'm growing the business, growing revenue, so it works. The spikes in sales work, so I'll be the face. But as soon as it doesn't work anymore, or I've got a better model, then I'll do that.
My final question to you. Yes, it does go by quick, especially when it's us. You've grown so much over the past 2 years, maybe even more. And it shows, not only in business, but also personally. And it shows. I would like to hear more of what have been the critical moments for that growth, and what would you encourage everyone who's about to take on an entrepreneurial journey to consider?
Okay, so I think for me, an inflection point was when I realized that in my 20s, I thought I was growing up and becoming someone different. And in the last 2 years, very specifically, I hate that it's 2 years ago is exactly when I turned 30. So it goes with when I turned 30, when I turned 40. But in the last 2 years, I've realized I'm actually returning to something that I know. So I'm returning to that girl that my mom raised and my dad raised. I'm tapping into things that are obviously not at the same level of smartness, but the ethics that were instilled in me at that time, the values that were instilled in me at that time, those are the values that I cannot take out of my mind and my body. So I'm tapping back into that. So it's sort of like growth is returning to what you've been raised to be. And a very powerful book, What Happened to You, emphasizes this. If you are born into a situation where your mother is stressed and she's unable to give you comfort and all of that, those years are very important. The first 3 weeks after you're born, the formative years, all of those years actually do determine the kind of 30 or 40-year-old you'll be. Not that if you grow up in a bad environment, you'll create a bad environment when you're older, but that situation when you're growing up impacts who you are later. So I think my growth is me settling into myself and how I was raised and who I was always meant to be, and it was always going to get you. No matter how sticky and rough it got in my 20s, it was always going to be good, because I had a very good foundation growing up.
Thank you, Sino. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That is the end of my conversation with Sino. The mic belongs to you. That is the end of my conversation with Sino. Thank you so much for sharing so openly. And before I get up and take a picture with Sino, because I do want to rep whilst she's on stage, we are going to now have 2 breakaway sessions. One is going to be a Work Smart breakaway session, which is going to focus on the content creator economy. It's a conversation that is moderated by Luyanda Duma in conversation with Spelele Mjadu, who is ex-Unilever. Spelele was instrumental in a lot of the influencer culture that we see in South Africa today. I wanted to invite you to be part of that conversation to speak through what that looks like. And of course, Lazy Makoti, who has built her entire brand around the digital and content community in a non-conventional way as someone who works with food. The other panel is going to be a Live Well panel that's going to be moderated by Kabelo. The volunteers are going to show you the room where that is going to be happening. That will be a conversation with Sipokazi Veti, who is a wellness coach, and Tati, who is the owner of Boss Plus Journals, who has created a journal that will help women navigate journaling and figure out how to rest and connect with themselves. That will be happening in a room where the volunteers will help you to get to. After those sessions, we're going to break for lunch. This is me going to a break. Thank you so much for embracing these 3 conversations, and we're going to get that going.